I like that phrase in the video, whoever understands people the best wins. I think there is a lot of truth in that idea, especially because at the end of the day, business is one of the most human things in the world. I always giggle when CEOs say, especially after bad news, nothing personal, it's just business. It's the most personal thing in the world. It's human beings coming to work with other human beings that they're trying hard to trust, they're trying hard to cooperate with, and they're trying hard, you hear it in business all the time, we're trying to build relationships with our customers. Well, isn't that human? Isn't that personal? But I think the marketing industry, and I come from the marketing industry, so I can say this, is guilty of not actually really trying to understand people. And so we're asking these wonderful kids to go work in companies where they know that their leaders prioritize a number over a person. They know that if the company misses its arbitrary projections, they may lose their job. What kind of stability, security, confidence does that help a human being build? The answer is that it destroys it. At least the rest of us at least have a memory of a different time. They think that's how business works. It doesn't. Those are choices made by leaders. And I would argue we have an incredible lack of good leadership in the world today, in every industry. And I talk to them all, and the problems are all the same. That's called empathy. Understanding the behaviors and what motivates somebody, not just looking at the superficial trend and saying, well, if they're doing that, we should do it more. If somebody's drinking a lot, the trend is they use alcohol to numb the pain. That doesn't mean give them more alcohol. That means understand where they're coming from and give them that. We have a responsibility as marketers to help our clients use technology to bring people together. We have a responsibility as companies to offer the people who work in our companies a sense that we're helping them build their confidence, that we're helping them overcome their addictions, that we're going to teach them patience, and we're going to teach them how to build strong personal relationships. We don't have a choice. We have a higher burden upon us. And there's so many little things that we can do that we are failing horribly at, that are so easy. Let me show you one. Can I borrow someone's phone, please? Anyone? Thank you. Okay, there is a subconscious reaction to these devices when we use them, okay? What if I were to hold my phone while I'm talking to you? I'm not checking it, it's not buzzing, it's not beeping, I'm nothing, I'm just holding it. Do you feel at this moment that you are the most important thing to me right now? No, you do not. Because there is a subconscious reaction we have to the device. When it is out, it makes the people around us feel that they are less important. So when we're walking down the halls in our offices and somebody says, hey boss, can I ask you a question? You go, sure, what's on your mind? We've just told them they're not that important. Or we can go, sure, what's on your mind? And if you don't have a pocket, find a shelf, put it on the shelf, come back and say, sure, what's on your mind? When we show up to a meeting, or a lunch, or a dinner, with our colleagues, our clients, or our friends, or our families, and we put the phone on the table, we have announced to everyone in the room that they are not that important to us. And by the way, putting the phone upside down is not more polite. My favorite one is in the meeting or at a lunch with someone that the phone will ring and the caller ID will pop up and they will go, I'm not going to get it. Oh, so magnanimous. Oh, I'm lucky to eat with you today. Or they could just put the damn thing away. You can tell how addicted we are. When somebody pulls out their phone when you're with them, how uncomfortable does that make us feel? You're walking down the street with someone, they pull their phone out. We feel stupid, so what do? We pull our phones out. We're so addicted. Somebody goes to the bathroom when we're at dinner, and what do we have to sit there by ourselves? God forbid we should look around the room for 5 minutes. We pull our phones out. Meetings, awful. What do we do when a meeting happens, right? Everybody's sitting waiting for the meeting to start. Bob's running a few minutes late. Bob's here? Okay, start the meeting. Do you know when relationships are built? All that in between time. Thank you very much. Can you catch? Relationships aren't built out of thin air. They take time. It's consistency versus intensity. You can't get in shape by going to the gym for 9 hours. It doesn't work that way. But if you go to the gym every single day for 20 minutes, you will absolutely get into shape. Consistency matters more than intensity. Intensity is going to the dentist twice a year, as prescribed. And if you only did that, all your teeth will fall out. We like intensity because it's easy to measure. I know exactly what time I'm going to the dentist, I know the date, I know how long I'm going to be there, and I know the results. This is how we teach leadership. We have a big seminar, we have an off-site, we have a couple speakers, everybody gets a certificate, we give the speakers high reviews, 8.5, I had a great time, I am a leader now. No. You don't fall in love with one big beautiful dinner and a bouquet of flowers. It's the little stuff. It's brushing your teeth every day for 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes in the evening. By itself, it does nothing. Nothing. It's the consistency. It's the repeat that makes our teeth healthy. And that's how relationships are built too. The way we build friendships, the way we build trust, the way we build camaraderie is when we're waiting for Bob because we're a little late, because he's a little late. We talk. Hey, I heard your dad was in the hospital. Is he okay? Oh yeah, thank you. He's much better. He's home now. Thank you for asking. Hey, whatever happened with that client? I heard something exploded. Oh my God, it was insane. By itself, it does nothing. But when we create environments in which those kinds of conversations happen on a daily basis, by removing the technology and allowing people to connect, you will see a rise in trust, a rise in cooperation. You will see a building of confidence. You will see an ability to rely on people. And why is it important to rely on people and trust people? So we can create environments of vulnerability. Vulnerability doesn't mean walking around crying. Vulnerability means creating an environment in which somebody feels safe enough to raise their hand and say, I made a mistake. I don't know what I'm doing. You asked me to do a job I feel ill-equipped to do. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm lonely. We haven't done that. And we've unfortunately exaggerated so many of these things. We've made the feelings worse. That is our responsibility, both inside our companies and as marketers, through our product and for our clients. Human. Human. Whoever understands people the best wins. That's true. I'll give you one final little thought. It's about perspective. In game theory, there are two kinds of games. There are finite games and there are infinite games. A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and agreed upon objective. Baseball. We all know the rules, we all agree to them, and we all agree that whoever has more runs at the end of 9 innings is the winner. Nobody ever says, hold on, if we could just play 2 more innings, I'm sure we can come back. It doesn't happen. Right? That's the rule. Those are the rules. Right? Then there are infinite games. An infinite game is defined as known and unknown players. The rules are changeable. And the objective is to keep the game in play, to perpetuate the game. When you pit a finite player versus a finite player, the system is stable. Baseball is stable. When you pit an infinite player versus an infinite player, the system is also stable, because there can be no winners and losers. The Cold War worked because nobody can win and nobody can lose. That is a bad scenario. So you just keep the game in play, and what happens because there are no winners and losers in infinite contests, what happens is players drop out when they run out of the will or the resources to continue to play. That's how it works. Problems arise, however, when you pit a finite player versus an infinite player, because the finite player is playing to win, and the infinite player is playing to keep going. And the finite player will always find themselves in quagmire. This was the United States in Vietnam. The United States was fighting to win. The Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese, were fighting to survive. This was the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. The Soviets wanted to beat the Mujahideen would fight for as long as is necessary. And the finite player will always find themselves in quagmire. Great marketers, great businesses know the game they're in. And it's amazing how many businesses don't play by the rules of the game that we're in. The game of business is an infinite game. The game of business has pre-existed every company that is on this planet, and it will outlast every single company that is on this planet. It is infinite. The players change, the rules change. Do you think Do you think MySpace was taken? They didn't even know Facebook existed. They were worried about Friendster. It's the competition we don't know about that always comes nipping at our heels, not the ones we're studying. In other words, new players, those are the rules. It's an infinite game. But if you listen to businesses, they're playing by finite rules. They're trying to beat their competition. They're trying to be number one. Based on what? Based on what criteria that everybody else has agreed to, based on what time frames that I've agreed to. We're number one. In what? Revenues, market share, profit, square footage, number of employees, who cares? Anyone can be number one if you make your own criteria, and that's what basically businesses do. No one else has agreed to the criteria. Everyone's trying to beat somebody else. It's a finite construction in an infinite game. And it produces quagmire. Let me tell you a story. I spoke at an education summit for Apple. I also spoke at an education summit for Microsoft, back in the Steve Ballmer days. At the Microsoft summit, I would say 70% of the executives spent 70% of their PowerPoints talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One was obsessed with beating their competition. The other one was obsessed with advancing their cause, or their why, as I like to call it, right? So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And I got to tell you, this was the most elegant piece of technology I ever saw in my entire life. It was beautiful. The user interface was incredible. The design was stunning. It worked flawlessly. They didn't allow it to work with iTunes, so I couldn't use it, but that's different. But the technology itself was absolutely gorgeous. So in the back of a taxi with an Apple executive, sort of like employee number 12 kind of guy, and I decide to stir the pot. And I turn to him and I say, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune, and it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turns to me and he says, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes you're number one and sometimes you're number two. Sometimes you have the best product and sometimes you don't. The goal is not to win every battle. The goal is to outlast your competition. The finite player is competing against everybody else. The infinite player is competing against themselves. How do we make our work better than the work we did last year? How do we advance down the field more than we did last year? How do we as individuals, how do we wake up every morning and be better versions of ourselves today than we were yesterday? Think about it in an interpersonal way, right? Do you want to be better than your friends, or do you want to be the best version of yourself? It's the same in business. And it's the infinite players who frustrate their competition. Apple for years frustrated Microsoft. Southwest Airlines frustrates everybody. Costco frustrates Walmart. It's the infinite players. Jim Senegal, the founder and former CEO of Costco, talked about how Wall Street's in the business of quarters. He's in the business of building a business for the next 50 years. And when you do that, you make decisions very, very differently. And so the question isn't how do we be number one and how do we help our clients be number one. The question is how do we help our clients stay in the game longer than anybody else? Because players drop out when they run out of the will or the resources to play. Every single bankruptcy, almost every merger and acquisition is basically a player saying we no longer have the will or the resources to continue to compete. We either drop out of the game or we have to merge with another company so we can maintain a position in the game, or you drop out. And another player will replace you. The game doesn't end just because you drop out. It continues. This understanding, the ability to empathize for the people we're talking to, for the people who work with us, for the people we aim to serve, and understanding the game that we're in are the two things that the best leaders do and the best marketers do. Think about all the best marketers that we know about. Yes, we talk about Apple and Steve Jobs, true. But think about all the best marketers. They have a unique, they talk about their ability to understand people. but it's understanding this level of people. And it's answering questions, developing products, and developing messages that talk to them here, not here. And understanding the game that they're in, and waking up every single day to compete against themselves. This is the opportunity. This is the opportunity. I think the marketing industry is so powerful in its ability to push other companies in one direction or another. And there are so many things egregiously wrong in the business world today that we are looking for a white knight. We are looking for a champion, anyone, any company, any industry that has the courage to say, let's talk to people differently. Let's understand our role in business differently. Let's change our perspective and how we're going to play in the game. And the rest of us will follow, because that's what people do. That's what companies do. They follow the leader. And that leader will seem to have unbridled success and an unbridled ability to understand. I believe that so desperately. The one who understands people better is the one who wins. Thank you very much.